Shut the fuck up. Fuck that shit. Tonight was week 3 of the 2-hour Raw format. Last week was a tape show, so they taped that the very first night of the inaugural 2-hour Raw, and I said you got to give it a few weeks to see if they find their groove, because that first show was not great. I enjoyed tonight more than I did the show the last couple of weeks, so I can safely sit here now and tell you I do not miss 3-hour Raws, and I think they're going to be just fine. There were a few things that happened on the show tonight. The biggest thing involving Jey Uso, the Intercontinental Champion, coming into tonight's show, defending his title in a rematch in the main event against Bron Breakker. But we got to take it back to Friday night. And I know I wasn't live for SmackDown on Friday night. I did review the show on the podcast this weekend and talked about what happened in the opening segment, where Jey Uso showed up on Friday night to confront Solo Sikoa. Jey Uso has not had any interaction whatsoever with the other members of his family for the last several months. He has been a man all on his own. He won that Intercontinental Championship on his own. He has been divorced from the bloodline, from the Great Value bloodline, anything bloodline. Jimmy Uso, though, last week, tried to talk to his brother for the first time since WrestleMania, and Jey wanted nothing to do with Jimmy. That's how things were left on Monday night. Fast forward to Friday night, and Jey Uso shows up on his own to confront his other brother, little brother, Solo. And his message to Solo was a very simple one. Stop dividing the family. Solo said, I'm not dividing the family. You could come be a part of us. All you have to do is acknowledge me, which of course Jey didn't do. He threatened Jacob Fatu because he was looking at him funny. And he said, the next time you see me, it's going to be different. And at that exact moment, you knew that Jey Uso just ended his own run as the Intercontinental Champion. He signed his death warrant. The minute he showed up on that show, and the minute he showed up to confront the bloodline and said what he said, you knew what the outcome tonight was going to be. You knew it was not going to end well for Jey Uso. And it didn't. Jey Uso no longer the Intercontinental Champion, and now for the second time, Bron Breakker is your Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. Why? Because the Bloodline showed up tonight. The Bloodline showed up supposedly to help Jey. In the end, they cost him the title, and that was a necessary step in the story that will lead us to a Bloodline War Games match at Survivor Series. And a story, frankly, that I think should have started probably in August or September, at least, on TV. And now we're finally getting into that mode where, okay, things are starting to move. I think they could have started things a little bit sooner than they did, but we're all going to get to the same destination no matter what. So while it was predictable and a lot of people probably saw it coming, it was the right move to make. You had to do it. You had to give Jey some kind of incentive to want to go after Solo and his crew and ultimately put aside his differences, whatever they may be with Roman Reigns and whatever they may be with Jimmy, to stand shoulder to shoulder with his brother, with his cousin, to go into combat at Survivor Series. Now, this story is not over as far as being told. There's a lot of steps left in the process. There's a lot of TV left to go between now and Survivor Series. But that is clearly where the story is headed now, and this was a necessary step in that direction. Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed have been butting heads over the last few weeks. They butted heads quite a number of times tonight. Those are some of the best parts of the entire show, and their match now is official for Crown Jewel. Adam Pearce made that announcement on the show tonight. We also know that next week on Raw, we have a triple threat match coming up to crown new number one contenders for the World Tag Team titles. And it is going to be the LWO, it is going to be the New Day, and it is going to be the War Raiders, who are not on the show tonight, but they will be next week. Whoever wins that match will go on to challenge the Judgment Day for the tag team titles in what will be, their second title defense maybe since they won those belts? They haven't exactly been on television lighting it up, defending those tag team titles. Whoever walks out next week as number one contenders, I sure hope that they can take those titles off of the Judgment Day. I have a sense of who it's going to be, and we'll get into that here as we go along. But there was another story as well that broke earlier today that also affected Monday Night Raw and has had a lot of people talking on social media, and also a lot of people talking out of their ass on social media, which happens a lot, especially of late. I've noticed that especially over the past several days, there are a lot of people showing their ass and speaking out of it on social media, but we won't get into that. But Samantha Irvin, the voice of WWE now for several years, and in my opinion, the greatest WWE ring announcer that they have had since Howard Finkel. I will go out there and say that right now. And not to say, and that's no shade at Lilian Garcia, Justin Roberts, even Mike Rome. I mean, they've had some very good ring announcers. But I have been a big fan of Samantha Irvin. I hold her in very high esteem, I know, as many people do. She's got a tremendous voice, and she puts a lot of personality and a lot of charisma into her announcements. And unfortunately, she is no longer the ring announcer for Monday Night Raw, because she posted on social media earlier today that she is departing WWE. This came out of nowhere, and I just want to read to you from her announcement that she made earlier today in case you missed it. But this is from Samantha. She was addressing the fans. Her time, she says, has come to an end as your Monday Night Raw ring announcer. I love you all tremendously, and this does not mark the end of my art. I have a lifetime more to share. Thank you to every WWE fan who accepted me, to the women's locker room, to the crew and the cameramen, to the WWE superstars, past and present. I have thanked you since 1989 and will continue to thank you for the rest of my days for entertaining us. She also gave thanks here to Paul Heyman, Michael Hayes, Michael Cole, Brian James, a.k.a. Road Dogg, Scott Armstrong, Gabe Sapolsky, George Carroll Jr. for giving me my first opportunities to rise to the occasion. Thank you, Triple H, for trusting me, showcasing me on this platform. Thank you, Mark Henry, for giving me my big break. I hope I made you proud. See, now I've talked about this before. Mark Henry has actually given quite a few people their big break. I've talked about him with Bianca Belair. I've talked about him with Jade Cargill. Now here's another example in Samantha Irvin. So she gave thanks to him and a whole bunch of different people, the producers and the makeup artists and everybody else. To my fans, my entire career, I've been waiting for you. We are meant to be, and I can prove it. Stay tuned. All my love, and still, Samantha. Now, immediately, you had people jumping all over this and blaming Ricochet. All of a sudden, Ricochet became public enemy number one from the flash mob on social media. That bald bastard. It must be his fault. He talked her out of working in WWE and wants her in AEW because that's where he is and that they could travel together, the selfish prick, right? Everyone jumping on Ricochet, pulling out their pitchforks for the guy, as if they know exactly why Samantha Irvin has made this sudden decision to leave WWE, because, of course, I'm going to trust, Joe Schmo on Twitter, who knows all the scoops as far as what's going on. So Ricochet took to Twitter, and he laughed, and he said, she's not coming to AEW. You can all rest easy. Now, that will not calm the mob, I'm sure. But at least according to Ricochet, she is not headed to AEW. Samantha Irvin is very talented, and frankly, there's any number of things that she could lend her voice to and that she could be doing. And I'm sure whatever she ends up doing, she's going to land on her feet and she's going to do very well. It's a shame because she has that distinct, very unique voice, lends itself very well to ring announcing. But I meant what I said. I mean, in my opinion, Howard Finkel is the gold standard as far as wrestling ring announcing is concerned. And that's just not just in WWE. That is in any promotion ever. Of all the great ring announcers there have been, you could run through the whole list of them, Gary Michael Capetta and Dave Penzer, and I know I forgot to mention poor Tony Chimmel. I left him out before. But Howard Finkel is the measuring stick, as far as I'm concerned, always will be. You talk about a distinct voice who could lend itself to making any match feel like a big deal and a big fight. That was the Fink. But Samantha Irvin, I think, is the best since the Fink. And even Michael Buffer, and you know Michael Buffer knows a thing or two about ring announcing big fights. Michael Buffer was like simping for Samantha Irvin on Twitter for years before anybody even knew. Like, he's always been a big fan of hers. And he was devastated by the news. Even he posted about it and said that he and his wife were very upset to hear about the news. He was brokenhearted by the announcement. But it just goes to show you, you know, how well she did in that position and how she excelled. So very sad to hear it. Wish her all the best. I'm sure wherever she lands, she'll do very well. So what does that mean now for Monday Night Raw as far as ring announcers? Well, for tonight, they brought in an old face, and I don't mean that negatively, but obviously from the past, I should say. Lilian Garcia was back on Raw tonight. And there's talk that maybe it could be a permanent role. She may be back for good. That's not confirmed, so I don't know if that's the case. But she was back in the ring announce position on the show, at least for tonight. You know, Lilian debuted in that spot back in 1999, and frankly, I didn't think she was very good back then when she first debuted. And also, I was quite sore because they were replacing the Fink. I said, why would you want to replace the Fink? It's like when Michael Cole took over at the play-by-play position for Jim Ross, right? He was in a no-win situation. When you are stepping in for someone who is still at the top of their game and is considered the GOAT, anybody who is put in that immediate position after them is going to be shit on and is going to just be attacked no matter what. So I feel like there was a little bit of that with Lilian at the beginning, but she grew into the role over time. So it was nice to hear her voice tonight, although she had a little bit of a rough night, which we will get into here. This is your Monday Night Raw review for October 21st, 2024. I am the Solomonster. I want to first, before we go any further, first thing I want to do is say thank you for getting me to 82,000 subscribers. We hit 82K on Friday. So thank you for 82. Now let's move on to 83 and 84. And so on and so forth. So if you are not among the 82,000, please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. Super chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen, including some that came in, including a big one that came in before I went live. Where's Bobby at? Is Bobby's World with us? I want to give a shout out to Bobby's World because he dropped a... No, not a Bremo. That was Alex. Thank you, Alex. But I got to give a shout out to Bobby for the $50 Gunther bomb that he dropped earlier in the stream, before the stream even went live. So, Bobby, thank you. You have the big bomb for the night so far. I will get to your message and everybody else's as we go along here. Also, I should, and we'll see when we get to the on-screen super chats later, but I should now be seeing the highlighted member chats as well. I think I got that fixed. So we'll see. Hopefully those will pop up for me when I go through them later as well. I also want to remind those of you who may not be aware, there is a special members-only Q&A that went up last week, part 1, over an hour. In fact, it was 69 minutes. Yes, 69. Q&A for members only. So if you were a channel member and you missed it, go check it out when you're done here. It's over an hour long, and guess what? Part 2 is coming up this week. So if you are a channel member, this Wednesday, part 2, another hour, answering your questions. And oh, some of these questions. You're going to want to hear this. So that's going to be going up on Wednesday. That'll give you 2 full hours of Q&A, only if you are a channel member. So now would be a good time to become one, or perhaps gift some memberships to those here who are on the channel. That would be very cool. Now, one other thing I want to mention about the show tonight is they aired a commercial because there was a rumor going around that it was from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Meltzer mentioned it on Friday. And everyone, of course, immediately laughs when you see the name Meltzer because that's become the punchline. But he had an item in the Observer that mentioned that WWE had reserved the ECW Arena, which is now the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. But it's the old ECW Arena for an NXT taping, and it was rumored to be the November 6th episode of NXT on the CW network. Now, November 6th is a Wednesday, and NXT is airing on a Wednesday that week because they are avoiding Election Day on Tuesday because nobody's going to give a shit about NXT. So they're moving it to Wednesday, which is going to put it head-to-head from 8 to 10 with AEW Dynamite, which is not going to be good for AEW. But November 6th, it is confirmed. They had a commercial. It was Shawn Michaels in the ring. They filmed it at the ECW Arena, and Shawn is talking about the history of hardcore, and they have highlights of the original ECW, and now they're bringing NXT wrestling to the ECW Arena. So they're building this up like it's a real event. For those of you who want to go, good luck is what I'll tell you, because it's not exactly a large venue. So you better be quick on the draw. Tickets go on sale at noon Eastern tomorrow. So if you want to go to the show, you better have 5 laptops ready and maybe a couple of phones, and maybe you'll be able to get a ticket to the ECW Arena. So just be aware of that. You see, Meltzer was right. If you want to mock him and make fun of him and call him out for when he's wrong, you got to give the guy credit when he's right. He broke the news, and hey, it turned out to be right. I'm just saying, you got to give credit where credit is due. So the beginning of Raw, they were showing highlights of all the wrestlers, as they do every week, arriving at the building earlier in the day. And they cut to a live shot of Bronson Reed, who was backstage. He was wheeling his luggage when he was ambushed by Seth Rollins. He got jumped. I saw a few kids back in the day, back in my high school days, get jumped as well. It looked kind of like this, although I didn't go to school with anybody quite as big as Bronson Reed. But he got ambushed. Rollins grabbed the briefcase, or not the briefcase, the suitcase, and he bashed Reed with it. Officials intervened. The camera then followed Rollins down the hall into the gorilla position and then into the arena. And he went right to the ring. He got on the mic and he called out Bronson Reed. So Adam Pearce walks out on stage and he says, no, this is not going to happen. All of a sudden, a security guard goes flying across the stage behind Adam Pearce. And of course, it was Bronson Reed who walks out, and he's headed towards the ring. Now he's trying to get inside. He can't get inside. He's all tied up with all of the security at ringside. Rollins knocks them all down. Everybody goes down with a suicide dive. So the two of them end up in the ring. Reed puts Rollins down with a Death Valley driver. And then Reed goes to the ropes, and he's going to be heading up top for the tsunami. Rollins knows this, and so he rolls out to the floor. Reed does a running shoulder tackle off the apron, takes down Rollins, and then he clears off the announce desk. He lays Seth across the desk, climbs up on top of the barricade by the timekeeper's area. Now, there's one security geek who's trying to stop him. Instead, he gets the geek on his back and then vaults him onto a pile of additional geeks down below, and they all fall down. At that point, Reed goes for a splash through the announce desk. Rollins moves out of the way. And Bronson Reed, he crashes through the table, and this table exploded. Okay, you have not seen the announce desk explode quite like this before. It basically imploded, but the side panel, like he must have hit it just perfectly, because the side panel of the table, it like ricocheted through the air. It's a good thing nobody was standing there. It probably would have hit him right in the eye. But it looked great. So this was a hot start to the show. I liked it a lot. Serious, fired up Seth Rollins is a hell of a lot better than Clown Boots Rollins. No clown boots tonight. No clown shoes. And I actually thought it was a very effective way for them to do this, because if you think about it, every single week, and this has really been a staple of WWE programming since Lee Fitting took over as the executive producer. Every week, they usually start Raw and SmackDown by showing us clips of people arriving at the building at various times throughout the day. And this was another situation where they're opening the show exactly the same way. Only this time, and maybe they've done this once before and I just don't remember, but it's unusual for them to then have somebody walking in and then boom, they get jumped from behind, right? We don't see it every week. So I thought it was an effective use of that technique there. But it was a hot start to the show. The fans were into it, and we were not done yet with these two men. There was more to come with these two. Backstage, Jackie Redmond was talking to Io Sky and Kairi Sane about wrestling Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson tomorrow night on NXT. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez showed up. Morgan looked into the camera and cut a promo on Nia Jax. Obviously, this annoyed Damage Control. This is their promo time, and Liv Morgan is now cutting a promo on somebody who isn't even on that show. So this all led to Io challenging the two of them to a tag team match later tonight.
I love you, Solo. You are my tribal chief.
Thank you, Jacob. We saw that man at the end of Raw. I believe that might have been his Raw debut tonight of Jacob Fatu. We're going to talk about him. Oh boy, the Judgment Day. We're going to talk about Jacob Fatu later and a very interesting confrontation that took place. Ian, thank you for the 32. The Judgment Day. Always interrupting. We had the New Day against the Authors of Pain in the #1 Contenders tournament for the Raw Tag Team titles, or as Lilian Garcia, I said she had a rough night. As Lilian Garcia called it, the #1 Containers tournament. I'm a Rubbermaid guy myself. So she messed up her very first announcement back. It would not be her last. Miz showed up at ringside dressed in all black. Like midway through the match, he's just there. And he's leaning up against the announce desk, the man in black, and he's watching what's going on. Interesting that not only was Miz dressed in all black, but Xavier Woods has been coming out dressed in black and white over the last several weeks. So then later on, R-Truth entered from the crowd. He double-legged Miz to the ground, started attacking him. Karrion Kross was out there. He tried to save Miz, but Truth nailed him with a kick. This distracted Razar in the ring and allowed Kofi Kingston to roll him up for the win. The dreaded roll-up distraction. We got the dreaded distraction roll-up finish. Always a great finish. That makes the guy look smart. So afterwards, R-Truth is in the ring celebrating with Kofi and Woods. They leave the ring. And Truth hangs back, and he's going to celebrate. He's going to play to the crowd a little bit more. But he ends up alone in the ring with the Final Testament and The Miz, who all ganged up on him. Now, Kofi sees this because they're standing on the stage. Kofi wants to go back and help R-Truth, and Woods is holding him back and saying, no. Like, it's not our fight. We won. He's more concerned about them not getting hurt because they're in the #1 Contenders match next week, and Kofi's trying to tell him he's our boy. Nope. So Woods, apparently Kofi just agreed because he never did go to help R-Truth. He was like, okay, I guess you're on your own. So that was the end of that as far as that goes. But I like that though, because it keeps with the selfish shift in Woods' character, which we know is leading somewhere. It sounds like the sort of thing he would be doing because he is obsessed with winning back those tag team titles. So they move on now to a triple threat match next week with the War Raiders and the winner of the one last qualifying match this week that took place later in the show. But we weren't done yet because the lights went out and we heard the Wyatt 6 music playing. We haven't seen these guys in a while. When the lights came back on, the Wyatt 6 surrounded the ring, including Nikki Cross, who was perched up on the top rope. She dove onto Scarlett. Eric Rowan, Dexter Loomis, Joe Gacy, they all cleared the Final Testament from the ring. Now the Miz is in the ring. And the Miz, he drops down on all fours and covers his head. Like, if I just pretend that this isn't going on, then it's not real. Like he was on a flight and the pilot, announced the entire flight that, hey, we're about to crash land into the side of a mountain. So y'all better kiss your asses goodbye. Okay, he was in the fetal position here on the mat. So while the Wyatt 6 outside, they fought Cross and AOP into the crowd. Then the Miz realized, okay, the coast is clear. So he stood up, he had a big smile on his face. But Uncle Howdy showed up behind him. And before Howdy could attack The Miz, who shoves Miz out of the way? I didn't even realize he was still in the ring. Paul Ellering. I often forget he's there at all, to be honest with you. But there he was. He shoves Miz out of the way to save him. And instead, Uncle Howdy puts the mandible claw on Paul Ellering and puts him out. Now, the crowd loved the Wyatt Six. They got a great reaction. Uncle Howdy, in particular, when Bo Dallas showed up, man, this crowd, they were very happy to see him. We have not seen these guys since their street fight with American Made. And, I mean, how many weeks ago was that? At this point, it feels like a couple of months already. It's been a while since we've seen them. Now, I'm not somebody who would advocate for having the Wyatt Six on the show every single week. You want to keep them special. Because I think there's a shelf life on this gimmick. This faction, this gimmick, there's clearly a shelf life on it. You don't want to overexpose it. It's smart to not have them on the show every week, but you got to have them on the show maybe every other week, every couple of weeks. You can't let 6 weeks or whatever it felt like go by, without having them on the show at all. There's got to be a happy medium. But a lot of us figured, I think, that this was going to be the direction. When you really looked at the Raw roster and you thought, okay, they're baby faces. Who would they feud with next? It was really one of two. It was either the Judgment Day or it was going to be the Final Testament. And the Final Testament gives them a group to feud with that they can beat, like they did American Made. And it makes sense that that would be the direction that they would go in. The problem with, for me anyway, the problem is that the Final Testament still bores me. Now, you got to give them something to do, which is what Triple H is trying to do here. But Cross's character is a little more interesting to me. Just the whole manipulations of other talent and stuff is an interesting direction for the character to go in. Now it's Miz, right? Miz is now being manipulated by him. But it's just such a weird thing. Like, Karrion Kross, I enjoy listening to him when he does interviews. Yeah, he just has a new one out with Chris Van Vliet. If you haven't listened to it, it's very good. So I enjoy him in that setting. But I find myself completely uninterested in him whenever he's on my television screen. And I think it just goes back to the character. Whether it was the character he's doing now or the one he was doing before, which honestly, the two of them are not radically different. And if they insist on not making any significant changes to the character, I just don't know how they fix that. And again, I'm just speaking for myself. Maybe you find this to be fascinating, but I don't. And again, unless they make wholesale changes to this character, I don't know. I just don't. I don't see me feeling any differently about Karrion Kross, in 6 months if he's doing the same thing then as he's doing now. Now, in the back, Jackie Redmond tried interviewing Adam Pearce, and she asked how he planned on getting things under control. And before he could answer that question, in comes Bronson Reed to confront him. And then Jackie says, never mind, and she walks away. Rollins then attacked Bronson Reed, and they had to be separated by officials. So this was now the second pull apart between these two on the show, not the last time that this would happen. They had a recap of Jey Uso's appearance on SmackDown last Friday, which I talked about earlier when he confronted Timu Bloodline. Kathy Kelly interviewed Jey live in the back, and Jey said that it was... now, he was in front. He was standing... because they were in Philadelphia tonight. And I believe he was standing... was it the Flyers? I believe it was the Philadelphia Flyers logo. Well, I mean, let's be fair here. It could have been any Philadelphia sports team. As soon as you saw that, you just knew that he was going to be a fucking loser at the end of this show. Hey, Phillies fans. How you doing? So Jay is standing there. He said, it's ironic that we're in the city of brotherly love because he had no love for his brothers right now. He said, I said what I said on Friday, and it is what it is. But tonight was round 2 with Bron Breakker, and he promised the fans would hear him announced and still Intercontinental Champion. So not only does that make him a loser, it makes him a liar too. Bad combination. We had Io Sky and Kairi Sane taking on Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Lilian Garcia. announced Liv and Raquel being accompanied to the ring by Dirty Dom. Only problem is, there's no Dominic. They came out to the ring by themselves. Faux pas number 2 on the night. Then they showed Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson from NXT. They were sitting in the front row. They're going to be wrestling Damage Control tomorrow night. Now, I talked about Lash in my SmackDown review over the weekend. She got a win on Friday night over Piper Niven. It wasn't a terribly long match, and it was mostly her doing power moves. And that's really how she won the match, too. She hit her finish on Piper, which was very impressive. This is the 3rd week in a row now that we have seen Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson appearing either on Raw or SmackDown. And they're still with NXT. So, but I'm not sure if this is part of what will be a full-time call-up for the two of them. My impression is no. It's not a full-time call-up, but I don't know for sure if it is or it isn't. But the one thing I will say, I think that Lash Legend should stay in NXT for a little while longer. But, and you saw hints of this on Friday night, she could absolutely get over on the main roster. She is an incredible athlete. She's got a great background. So no one is doubting her athletic prowess or her power, but it's her power and her strength, I think, a lot like Jade, that will help her get over on the main roster. And I pointed out, that segment many, many months ago on NXT when she body slammed Otis and how fucking impressive that was. And that was the PC. So you had, 250 people maybe in the building and the way they reacted to it. Now imagine her doing that to Otis or doing that to Bronson Reed or something like that on Raw. She would instantly be over. So I'm not concerned about her ability to get over on the main roster. I'm just more concerned about the fact that I think it would be a mistake to call her up right now when NXT really is the appropriate place for her to be for a little bit longer. But I do see star potential in her, absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with her, busting out that power stuff and going on offense with a lot of the power moves. I think that will help get her over as a big star when that time comes. I don't think now is that time. Kairi and Io, they tried using their speed to counteract Raquel's power advantage, but she just mowed them both down with clotheslines. Kairi hit an assisted elevated elbow drop. Raquel broke up the cover. Kairi ducked a charge, and Raquel went shoulder first into the post. Uppercut by Io knocked Morgan out of the ring. Io drop kicked her into the barricade. Io then turns, and she sees Lash Legend, and she sees Jakara Jackson in the front row. And so she yanks Jackson over the barricade. So Lash leans over the barricade and blasts her with a forearm shot, and we get the disqualification. Then in the ring, we have Lash and Jakara. They laid both members of Damage Control out with their finishes. Lash's finish, by the way, I didn't know the name of it when I talked about it on Sunday. It's the Lash Extension is what she calls it. Very funny. She calls it the Lash Extension, so that's what it's called. Same move she used on Piper Niven. So the whole purpose of this was to promote their match against Damage Control on NXT tomorrow night. Now, as Liv and Raquel faced off with Jackson and Legend in the ring after this, Rhea Ripley's music hit. Of course, she got a big pop. She comes out. Now, Lash and Jakara, they disappeared. So we never saw them again after this. Ripley headbutted Raquel, threw her out of the ring. She stopped Liv from escaping. Liv hit her with a code breaker. Ripley bounced back, set up for Riptide. Dominic appeared. There he is. And he pulled Liv out of the ring to safety. So Rhea grabs him instead. And she yanks Dom over the top rope and into the ring. And then she puts Dominic in the prison lock. And then he gets pulled out to safety by Liv and Raquel. Raquel is clearly still finding her footing in the ring. She hasn't been back very long. In fact, I think this was her first match since February. We've seen her in Liv's corner, but we haven't actually seen her in a match. And I will say this. As rough as it was in parts for her here, she is still much better off being linked to Liv Morgan and being linked to the Judgment Day than she would be if they had called her back up, especially as a babyface. And if she was just back on TV solo. Remember when she was a babyface, she would come out smile all the time, right? She'd do that thing with her. She'd like flex her back. They'd show her back. My God, you could drive your car over it. My God, the muscles on this woman. But you have to smile, right? That was always a Vince thing. You're a babyface. You got to smile, right? Smile like you own the world. And so if that's how she would have come back, she would be fucking dead in the water. She's still better off being in the position that she's in right now. At least she's a part of something. She doesn't have to be the focal point of it. The size disparity between her and Liv, it makes her look bigger than she even really is. Makes her look like more of a monster. Honestly, the thing that surprised me the most is that she was in there selling as much as she was. Because I'm sure they're setting up a singles match with her and Rhea before Rhea gets her rematch with Liv. She's got to go through Raquel first. I would think they would want to protect her a little bit more. You know, and make her out to be more of a monster than they did here. So that was the only thing about it that surprised me. But again, yeah, not her finest hour in the ring, but this was her first match back. So we'll give it time and see if that improves. I kind of felt the same way, honestly, about Sonya Deville. She was out for months and months and months with the ACL injury. She came back. She had a handful of matches on Raw. I wasn't impressed. And I've seen her in the ring before. It's not like we've not seen Sonya in the ring having matches over the years. But I just was like, all right, she hasn't found her footing yet. It's just, you know, and there was one moment that still stands out to me. She was in the ring with Lyra Valkyria. And they were trying to do a spot. And Lyra's like waiting for her to get in the right position. And she had to yell at her. And it was a mess. I kind of feel the same way here about Raquel. But we go to the back after this, where Seth Rollins was about to tell Adam Pearce this doesn't end until he makes the match. But he barely finished getting the sentence out before he was attacked by Bronson Reed. And yet again, we end up with a pull-apart brawl here between these two men for the third time on this show. And this time, Adam Pearce was fed up. Adam Pearce had seen enough. And he's shouting at these two. He says, do either one of you selfish bastards stop to think for 1 second that I was going to give you what you want? Of course not. But he is. At Crown Jewel, Bronson Reed against Seth Rollins, it is official. And Reed shouted at Rollins that this was the worst mistake he ever made. So there it is. It is official for Crown Jewel. We'll get hopefully the first match. Hopefully the first of multiple matches between these two. I'm not saying we need a best of 7 like we're getting between Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. But Bronson Reed needs to win that match at Crown Jewel. Then they can run it back and they can have Rollins get his win back if they want to, because that's how WWE does things. And if Rollins is going to be primed for something big in the new year, like a feud with CM Punk, then they're going to want him to go over here. I get that. But Bronson Reed needs to win this match at Crown Jewel. The Judgment Day met backstage in their new clubhouse. Finn Balor told Liv Morgan he doesn't like hearing that Damian Priest is still gunning for the World Heavyweight Championship. Dominic said that maybe he would be the one to beat Gunther. And Carlito laughed, and JD McDonough laughed, and you could hear the world laughing in the background as he said this. So Raquel asked Carlito, what do you even do around here? And he said that he brought the cool factor to the group, which, okay. So he realized that was not the best answer to give her, and he said he's the fixer. He goes, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go right now. I'm going to go fix this. And off he went. Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee against the Creed brothers. This was the final qualifying match for this week in this number 1 contender. They call it a tournament. They don't show you any brackets. But take our word for it. We're going to call it a tournament. Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, the babyfaces here up against the Creeds, who would go on to join the triple threat next week with the New Day and the War Raiders. First, before I tell you the answer, we begin with Lilian Garcia, who announced Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee as being accompanied to the ring by Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, and Zelina Vega. Well, 1 out of 3... I guess is not, well, it is pretty fucking bad, but she got 1 out of 3. No Joaquin Wilde to be found, no Cruz del Toro to be found, and now I'm sitting here at this point in the show. This is the 3rd time she's fucked up, and I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be a rib on her. You know, like the first time she fucked up. She called it a number 1 containers match, and now I just have this image in my head of a Rubbermaid bowl and like a lock and lock thing, just kind of wrestling to the death. All right, fine. Shit happens, right? But like, this has got to be a rib. Like, what did they write down on these cards? Clearly, she was reading off of cards that somebody did not bother to update because she's announcing people who aren't even out there. Like, are they invisible? What is going on here? I felt bad for her. Anyway, Ray tried a springboard move. Brutus caught him and hit a moonsault. Julius followed with a moonsault as well. Dragon Lee broke up the cover. Dragon Lee hit Julius with a double foot stomp and wiped out Brutus with a flip dive out of the ring. So Ray went for a 619, and he stopped when he saw Chad Gable up on the apron. Julius used the distraction to hit a knee strike. Zelina Vega then, she had the chancla. I forgot about that. That's right. She had the chancla, and she threw it. She threw it at Chad Gable. He didn't like that very much. Ivy Nile went after her. Vega, though, hit a head scissor takedown. Ray hit Julius with a 619, and Dragon Lee followed with a frog splash for the win. LWO goes on to the triple threat next week. I thought it was a good match. It was an outcome that seemed predictable to me the minute, you have the New Day in the match next week. So, to me,
say his name and he appears. I believe in the monster. I believe in the monster.
Oh, I gotta let this play out.
Cause they love him in London, in Paris, in Tokyo, America, Scotland, and Canada, and Mexico. They say, I believe in the monster. I believe in the monster.
Oh my goodness. Not only is it a $150 bomb from Chris Mikesell, but get a load of this. Just wanted to have my gender reveal party here. I am having a boy. First week of April. Much love, Solo. Congratulations to Chris. He is having a baby. Well, his wife is having a baby boy. Let's not buck science here. Having a baby boy in April of next year. That is awesome. Chris, thank you for dropping the bomb. That's awesome, brother. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you. All my best. I'm very glad he shared that news with all of us here live. That's our first gender reveal here on one of these streams. I feel honored. I feel honored that you have chosen this platform and this night to make that announcement. Now you got to tell us what names you're thinking of. I might have a few suggestions. Wow, $150 bomb. Poor Bobby's World now, man. He moves into the number 2 spot for tonight. Thank you, brother. What I was going to say is, the New Day is in this match next week, and the LWO, Ray in particular, right? Woods has had issues with him recently. So, to me, it was kind of predictable who was going to go over here in this match. And I think they also wanted another... not that New Day are not babyfaces. Woods is kind of on the fence right now. So now you got a solid babyface team here in Ray and Dragon Lee. And then you have a heel team in the War Raiders. So it's kind of an even field there. But it's also another loss for American Made. And this, I'm not a fan of. This, I'm not a fan of the constant losing. And the problem is that these guys now, all three of them, just feel so beaten down. If you are booked at that level long enough, it becomes very hard to change people's perception. They will only see you at a certain level. And then when the day finally comes, if it ever comes, where they want to elevate you to a higher level, they can try, but it's just going to be that much more difficult because for so long, people are looking at you and going, oh, okay, when they hear the music, they just know. Oh, it's these guys. Oh, it's them. And that's not good. That's not a good thing. They either need to do something meaningful with them ASAP or get them the hell off this show and move them over to SmackDown. Like I've recommended Drew McIntyre be traded to SmackDown. If they decide to keep Drew McIntyre on Raw, he'll be fine. It's not going to be the death of him. I just feel he'll have fresh opponents to face. And it's just one of those things where him and CM Punk being on the same show but not being at each other's throats after this blood feud they had just would feel wrong. American made, though, they desperately need a change. Like, McIntyre could go either way, but they need something here. McIntyre's an established guy. These guys are not established. They're being established at the wrong level. That's not going to be good for their future. So I hope that changes soon, but next week, it's New Day, LWO, War Raiders. I'm going with New Day. It feels like a New Day win. I think they're the only ones really in this match next week that have a story that's ongoing. I think you send New Day to that match against the Judgment Day and take it to whatever the next chapter of the story is going to be with Kofi and Woods. I still think we have to get a Big E appearance at some point. Yeah, you got that 10-year anniversary coming up in November. Things are going to reach a boiling point at some point. You know, they probably go to the match and then maybe they fall short and maybe that's where Woods finally snaps. And then we get Big E showing up on TV trying to mend fences here and kind of bring the New Day back together. I mean, that's where I see this going. But I think they get the win next week. Backstage, Adam Pearce. Boy, that would be a news story, wouldn't it? Adam Pearce was talking to Io Sky and Kyrie. Boy, Punk's ears just perked up. I'm sure he's watching. He was talking with Io Sky and Kyrie Sane and assured them that he would talk with the other general managers. He would figure out a solution to the problem. After they left, or as they were leaving, Carlito walks in and he says he has to learn Chinese. And I sat here and I thought to myself, is Vince back writing these scripts again? Jesus Christ. What are we doing here? So Carlito recommended Dominic Mysterio as a challenger for Gunther. And Pearce started laughing. He asked, are you serious? And Pearce said, look, Dom hasn't done anything to earn that opportunity. And he questioned why he wouldn't be the one here making the request himself. Why is Carlito here making the request for him on his behalf? Carlito said, I'm the fixer. And then he just starts begging Pearce to please make the match. And Pearce said he would consider it if Dom can beat a former world heavyweight champion that he has in mind on the show next week. Carlito thanked him and then asked, you got a new haircut? As he walked off. And Pearce said no. And then he said, I need a drink. So, unfortunately, he is once again off the wagon. That former world heavyweight champion wouldn't happen to be a big Yankee fan now, would he? I'm sure he'll be tuned into the World Series later this week. That former world champion appeared in another backstage segment a little bit later where Kathy Kelly was interviewing the world heavyweight champion of today, Gunther. She asked him if he would answer Cody's challenge to show up on SmackDown this Friday. Now, if you did not see SmackDown on Friday night, Cody Rhodes was on the show, and he cut a promo. And in this promo, he said absolutely nothing of note. It was the most boring, meandering, droning, unnecessary promo, filler promo that he has ever cut since he came back to WWE. Because they are trying so hard to make this crown jewel championship out to be something, and this champion versus champion match out to be a big deal. It really doesn't feel like that big of a deal. You would think it would feel like a bigger deal, but it really doesn't. But the problem is, like, I just can't bring myself to care. They're not even fighting over either of their respective championships. They're fighting over a brand new belt. Yes, it looks great. And it's got all these different carats and diamonds and stuff in it. They give it the white glove treatment every week now. They had it tonight. They had people in the back with gloves on, showing it off. It was in a long carrying case. They're treating it like the Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup feels important. Crown Jewel title does not. And it's not going to. And it just feels like, all right, we got to get this over with. And once we get past this, we can move on to Survivor Series and War Games and all the stuff that really matters. So Cody, in this promo on Friday, he's out there and he's just talking about taking on the John Cena schedule since he came back to the company, and then some. And then he mentioned, in a roundabout way, he mentioned his daughter as being the reason why he needs to win the Crown Jewel title. I'm sorry, his daughter is the reason why he needs to win the Crown Jewel championship? I mean, this is the story they're going with here? You're the WWE champion. You have the #1 title, the top title in the company. You finished the story. You beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Did you not do that for your daughter? No, I have to win this for my daughter now. They're trying to add a personal element to it, and it just feels so forced. But the way they ended the promo was Cody said, Gunther, I want you to come here to SmackDown on Friday, and you can tell all of us why the Crown Jewel Championship is important to you. That's how they hooked you in for the show this week. I have no interest in seeing this. We already saw the two of them in the ring together last week on Raw anyway. It's not like there's going to be some novelty of seeing Cody and Gunther sharing a ring together. We already did. But that was the big hook for SmackDown coming up this Friday. We're going to get Gunther telling us why the Crown Jewel title is important to him. I don't give a shit. So anyway, just to bring you up to speed on Cody's promo from Friday. Gunther said Cody drags his family into things and it was unnecessary for him to mention his daughter. Yes, it was. As the reason why he needs to win the Crown Jewel title. Gunther said Cody as WWE champion is one of many, whereas he is one of one. So Damian Priest entered the picture, the big Yankee fan himself. And Priest said, look, relax. He said he handled his business with the Judgment Day and now he wants his title back. He said he was going to earn it, though. He's not going to ask for a shot. He's going to earn it. He told Gunther to go handle his business at Crown Jewel, and then he was going to have a big problem waiting for him when he gets back. So I'm thinking Survivor Series for this. That could be the title match at Survivor Series. I mean, there's been so many rumors about what is the match going to be. Is Punk going to challenge Gunther? Maybe. Punk's not going to be a Crown Jewel, but he and Drew McIntyre are expected back on TV after that. So both of them will have a role at Survivor Series. Not against each other. I can't imagine. I mean, why? What would be the point of that? That's over. It's finished. So it could be Gunther and Punk, but Gunther and Priest, obviously they're teasing it. They're building to it. Do they do the match and then have Finn cost them? You can't really do that, though, because you already did that at Survivor. You already did that at SummerSlam. You're going to do that at Survivor Series? That doesn't make sense. But we had Finn Balor earlier in the show saying it bothers him that Damian Priest is going back after the world title, which means that he is going to stop him either from getting the shot in the first place or stop him from winning the championship. I think it's more likely he gets involved in Damian's business and prevents him from even getting the rematch. Because if you give him the rematch and Balor interferes, again, you're just redoing the finish from SummerSlam, and I just think that would be so lazy. So we'll see what they do. I'm thinking Priest and Dominic is probably the match for next week. Maybe that'll end up being a #1 contenders match. Maybe Balor costs him the match. Dom wins the match. You know what I like? I'll tell you what I like better. I like the idea better of Dominic winning the match next week when Finn Balor costs Damian Priest the match. And now Dominic has put himself in a position to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. Just for the novelty of it, just to see Dominic in there against Gunther, it would be so ridiculous. It's like at the beginning of this year, the rumor going around was that Brock Lesnar was going to return in the Royal Rumble match. He was going to be eliminated by Dominic Mysterio. And then Brock would wrestle Dom in Australia at Elimination Chamber, and I'm sure it would get fucking destroyed. And then that we were going to get Brock and Gunther at WrestleMania. So that was what the plan was reported to be. As ridiculous as it sounds, the notion of having Dominic in there, and I'm actually really sad we didn't get to see that. Dominic in there against Brock Lesnar. It's kind of the same thing with like the idea of Dominic and Gunther. I kind of want to see it. I think you could get away with doing that as a Raw match one week. So I kind of hope it plays out that way next week. That's what I'm thinking. You know, on second thought, I don't think Priest and Gunther is going to be the plan for Survivor Series. Maybe we will get Punk and Gunther. The problem with Punk and Gunther, though, if you do it there, is what's the escape hatch? I don't see Punk winning the World Heavyweight Championship. But I also don't see Gunther beating him clean. So how does that work if you do that match at Survivor Series? I don't know. The main event was Jey Uso defending the Intercontinental Championship. Oh, Big G says, didn't Pierce say that Dom would get a number one contenders match if he wins next week? Did he? I thought maybe if he won next week, he would consider giving him the shot. That was my impression, that if he wins the match against the former world champion next week, he would earn an opportunity to challenge for the title. I think that's what Adam Pierce said. Him having to beat a former world champion and then he'll consider putting him in a number one contenders match, that doesn't make any sense. I think I'm right. Jey Uso against Bron Breakker for the Intercontinental title. We had 20 minutes left in the show when this thing got started, so they gave them plenty of time, but of course, as they always do every single week, barely a minute, if that, into this match, they went to a commercial. Before the break, the champion was in control. Coming out of the break, the challenger was in control. Breakker made Jay's lower back his target, which would become important for later, so keep that in mind. Bron hit a Frankensteiner at one point off the top, only for a 2 count. There was a second commercial break, after which Jay hit a spear for 2. Then there was a commotion in the crowd. And they cut to the crowd, and we see Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. And they walk to the front row, and Solo comes bearing 2 tickets, one for each of them, and he's waving them around. And I was amused by this because he had the physical tickets. Like, you don't see that as much anymore. He's waving the paper tickets around here. Look, I guess it's better than him waving his phone around with a QR code on it, but I don't think people have too many paper tickets anymore. I kind of miss the paper tickets myself. I have a whole drawer full of them from all the wrestling shows I've ever been to, going all the way back to like 94. I don't know why, but it's funny too, because all those old Ring of Honor shows that I used to go to, it wasn't like the traditional ticket. They had their own tickets that they had, but they were always different colors. So I have like the most colorful ticket stubs that I have are all from ROH shows. I have yellow ones and green and orange and red. You know, it's just something to collect. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coins. Some people collect bodies in their basement. I collect ticket stubs. But we don't really have ticket stubs anymore. Jay confronted Solo at ringside. What are you doing here? He wants to know what he's doing here. And Solo's trying to explain, look, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you win the belt. Even though he already has the belt, but that's what he said. He wants to help him win the belt. So Bron Breakker tried using the distraction, but Jay sent him into the ring post. So all of a sudden, on the other side by the barricade, Jay is standing there. I think he's like leaned up against the barricade. And Tongaloa is in the front row. And Tongaloa is trying to give him some words of encouragement, so Jay super kicks him, which wasn't very nice. Tama Tonga leaped off the barricade. He was out of nowhere. There he is, and Jay super kicks him too. I'm sure the referee saw all of this, and he did nothing. So for as much as I call out the dumb AEW referees and the way how dumb they make them look on TV, it's not like WWE doesn't do the same thing. Solo Sikoa then hopped the barricade, and he told Jay he just needed to join them. Bron Breakker now, he comes in for a spear. Jay moves out of the way, and Bron spears Solo instead. And Jacob Fatu now, they take a close-up of his face, right? Because he's the enforcer. He's the protector of Solo, who has now been taken down. He's been taken out by this spear. And he's got a look on his face like he's ready to murder somebody. So Jacob Fatu steps over the barricade. Bron Breakker, his back is turned, but he senses there's something behind him. And Bron turns around. And now they're eye to eye. They're not right next to each other quite yet, but they're eye to eye. And then Bron comes towards him. Jacob comes towards him. We have a face-off here between these two. And you should have heard the reaction from this crowd. This crowd reacted to this. You would think that they were setting up the WrestleMania main event. They reacted to this like this was a big fucking deal. And I'll tell you what, this will be a WrestleMania match, I'm sure, at some point down the road. It'll be a few years from now. But this is a WrestleMania match in the future. For sure, this is a major match on a PLE at some point. Especially after the reaction it got tonight. You got to build this up for the future. Like, way off into the future, but this is going to be a big deal when it eventually happens. But before anything could transpire, Jey wiped them both out with a suicide dive. Jey then tried an Uso splash. Bron got his knees up at the last second. Breakker went for a spear. Jey hit back-to-back super kicks and then a spear. He went up top. He connected this time on an Uso splash, and he covered him, but Bron kicked out at 2.5. That was a great near fall. They even had me there for a second. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, they jumped up on the apron, but Adam Pearce and some officials ran out to pull them away. Now, as all of this was going on, Jey went for a running spear around the ring, right? We've seen Bron Breakker do this before. It's like almost kind of like his version of a Strowman Express. He's sneaking around the ring and he's going for a spear. But as he turns the corner, Jacob Fatu meets him with a super kick. And then Fatu gets him up on his shoulders and gives him a Samoan drop on top of the announce desk, which did not break. But Joe Tessitore pointed out that Jey got dropped and he landed on the back, on the bad back that Bron Breakker had been working over for a good chunk of the match. Fatu helped Solo to his feet. They left through the crowd. Bron put Jey back in the ring and then speared him and got the 3 count. And Bron Breakker, for the second time in his short career, is once again the Intercontinental Champion. That sound that you hear is Rikishi breaking all of the furniture in his house. Like me, when that Learning Tree Super Chat comes on, that's Rikishi right now. The plates are breaking, glass is being shattered, tables are being overturned, chairs are being just smashed to bits. He's not a happy man tonight. Was it predictable? Yes. Was it the right move? Absolutely. It's exactly what they had to do. This now gives Jey Uso a reason to be involved in this bloodline story heading into War Games, because you have Jey Uso, who spent most of the year promising the fans that he would be a singles champion in WWE for the first time. This was his goal. And he finally did it. He won the Intercontinental title. And he showed up on Raw the following week. He had that weird promo that really wasn't very good, but he stood in the ring and he talked about how he was dedicating it to his mom. This was a big deal to him. And now, what are we, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later? Not even a month. And now it has been taken away from him. And not just taken away from him in a fair fight or taken away from him by some other person, but by his own blood. His own brother cost him the Intercontinental Championship. So now Jey, this is personal for him. And Jey is going to have good reason now to at least consider mending fences with Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso so that they could take on the Bloodline in War Games. And again, we got to get Sami Zayn in there, and the Wise Man will come back, and they'll get the whole OG crew minus Solo back together. This is part of the story. This is a part of the story that had to happen this way. And what I said on the podcast on Sunday was, not only is Jey going to lose this championship, he cost himself the title the minute he came out there on SmackDown Friday night and said what he said. But it goes even deeper than that, because this Friday on SmackDown, there's a number 1 contenders match for the tag titles. It's going to be the Motor City Machine Guns against DIY. I think the Motor City Machine Guns win that match. They get the shot against the Bloodline, and they win the titles. They win the titles because Jey Uso costs the Bloodline the tag team titles, just the way that they cost him his championship tonight. Tit for tat. What's good for one is good for the other. You did it to me, I'm going to do it right back to you. Then you go into War Games from there. So I think both sets of titles here have to change hands, and I think the Machine Guns could end up being the beneficiary of that. Maybe it's a cheap win, but a win is a win. You put the gold on them to establish them early on, and Jey gets some measure of revenge for what they did to him tonight. That's how I see this playing out. But it moves us one step closer into the direction that we need to be going in for that War Games match at the end of next month. So I thought it was a good main event. In general, I enjoyed the show tonight more than I have the last couple of weeks. I think that they're going to be just fine. In the 2-hour format, it is clear they are still working with a 3-hour roster. Nothing is going to change that. There's not going to be another draft for a few months. You're going to have too many people on the roster that are not going to be able to get on the show every single week, Triple H will find a way to rotate people in and out so that some people are on the show every other week and maybe not every single week. You'll notice tonight we didn't get the Pure Fusion, Garbage Collective. They were not on the show tonight. Some other people that have been on the show were also not on the show. They will likely be on the show next week. Nothing wrong with that. But they're settling into the format. Again, I don't miss the 3-hour format. I'm happy that Raw is 2 hours, at least for another couple of months. We know it's not going to last. We know it's going right back to 3 hours. In January, SmackDown's going to be 3 hours. It's going to be 3-hour galore. You could throw 3-hour fucking orgies every single week. But for the time being, I think Raw is going to be fine. I thought Raw was a better show this week than it was last week. Apparently, many of you agreed with me because according to the Twitter poll here, roughly 80% of you have given tonight's show a thumbs up score. 20.4% thumbs down for Monday Night Raw. Look, everyone, it's Samoa BRO. It's Samoa BRO joining us here. Thank you, Samoa BRO. I'll be reading your messages here in a little bit. You can vote at Solomonster. That is where you can find the poll. Let me know what you thought of Monday Night Raw. Would love to know. Always get that feedback. Look at you. Look at you people in your 3-hour orgies that you love so much. You'll survive on 2 hours, only for a couple months. You'll be fine. Row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Couldn't even get a word out. That's Rikishi today. I'm telling you, it's Rikishi. Fuck that tree. That is what is going on in the Rikishi household tonight. He is on the warpath, I'm telling you. Gonna call the cops on this guy. All right, let's start from the beginning here before we get into the ones on screen. We got some early ones to knock out first. Thank you guys, by the way, for those of you who have dropped super chats. New channel members, welcome. Josh Carlos 98 dropped a pair of super chats. Wanted to know worst Halloween film: Resurrection, Halloween Ends, Halloween 5, 6, or H2, the Rob Zombie sequel. Says Kills was rough, but it was entertaining at least with the kills that Michael does. The worst Halloween film is Resurrection. It's the one with Busta Rhymes. I will happily take the one with LL Cool J, which was H2O. I will take that over Resurrection. Resurrection sucked. And best Halloween film, minus the original and 3. Is it 2018? Is it 4? Is it H2O or the original Halloween 2? I really enjoyed 2018, but I really like 4. And I thought Danielle Harris did a great job, and they really had a missed opportunity at not making her at the very end of that movie the new villain. That would have been a very clever, kind of outside the box concept. And it's too bad they didn't go with it. So for me, it's between 2018 and Halloween 4, and I think I might go 2018. But 4 is pretty high up there for me. Luis. These two men need to be put inside a steel cafe. I swear to God, that's what it says. I swear. A steel cafe or a Hell in a Cell. Luis, on your keyboard, okay? The E, I know the E is close to the F, and clearly you screwed that one up, but I think you just created a new match concept. This can only be settled in the Steel Cafe. I like that. Forget the Hell in a Cell. I agree. You got to put Rollins and Bronson Reed in the Steel Cafe with a little bit of Danish. They have to place their order first, right? You get. Oh, man. You are something else. You are something else. The real CS says, so according to Ibu, WWE getting good again killed wrestling. Some people should not be on social media. He says also, had Vince not killed the character so soon after its debut, could you have seen and would you have been interested in Bray's past trying to exploit the Fiend's weaknesses? Say, I think you missed a word here. I don't understand what you're asking. Maybe someone from Bray's past trying to exploit the Fiend's weaknesses? Yeah, I mean, that could have been interesting. But I don't know. I'm assuming that's what you meant by that. Boots. Buy or sell. A three-way dance between Konosuke Takeshita, Josh Alexander, and Mike Bailey. There must be somebody at House of Glory who can make it happen. Well, we've had Mike Bailey multiple times in House of Glory, and we've had Josh Alexander. He had a hell of a match earlier this year against Mike Santana. I can tell you that we are trying to get Takeshita. I definitely want Takeshita in HOG, and we're going to try to make that happen. As far as that match, I don't know about that match. I would love to see that match, but I don't think that's going to be the match, but we're trying to make something happen. We've got Jay Slazer. Unrelated, but have you seen Smile? And if you did, are you going to watch Smile 2? I watched it on Friday and it was really good. I have not seen Smile. So I cannot see Smile 2 if I have not seen Smile. Bobby's World with the 50. What up, Solo? And what up, chat? You should do something special when you hit 93,173 subscribers. Or perhaps you should have when you hit 78,000. See, 78,000 was the one. We already blew past that. When we hit 93,173, I will body slam something. I'll film it and I'll put it up on the channel. Josh Carlos, do you think Night 1? Oh no, do I think One Night Stand 05 is a top 5 pay-per-view all time? I do. It's one of my favorite pay-per-views ever. Daniel Carlisto, that was AEW levels of referee stupidity. The Tongans were already handled by Adam Pearce. Why is the referee still looking there so long? Because he's an idiot. Because they told him to. And it makes the referees look absolutely incompetent. And I hate when they do that, but that's just the way it is in wrestling. Because you got to have the referee looking elsewhere when the interference goes down. Pisco95. Still sad about Samantha Irvin leaving. She's the greatest WWE ring announcer since Fink. Doesn't seem like she's going to AEW, but whatever she ends up doing, I hope she does well and is happy. I agree. I also wish I saw so many people on social media today calling her Samantha Irvins. Like they don't know her fucking name. Her name is Irvin. She's been there long enough. People should know her name. Jerome Eugenia, the unbeatable Wyatt 6 against a faction that can't win. I wonder how this will play out. Gee, I wonder. A faction that can't lose ever, and they're undefeated against a faction that can't win to save their lives. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. What are the betting markets saying on that? Justin G, sorry about your Mets. I'm hoping the World Series ends in a no contest double DQ now. I cannot back either team. Yes, I am not backing either team either. But we had a good run. We got beat. We got outplayed and outclassed. We did not deserve to win that game last night. Simple as that. When you leave 13 fucking people on base and you walk the world, you cannot win games. Like, you just can't. I forgot what the total number was. Somebody added it up for like the entire postseason. The number of people that the Mets left on base. Like, you could build like 5 rosters worth out of the men that they left on base. You can't say they didn't have opportunities. They had plenty of opportunities, and they just weren't good enough. Like, I thought I would be more upset than I was. You know, like 2006 was just brutal. This is an absolutely brutal defeat. And Beltran standing there and just watching it. I don't even want to get into that. This, when it was over, yeah, I was bummed, but it was like, you know what? They got beat. They got beat by the better team. It's simple as that. And they did a hell of a lot better than anybody expected them to, and then hopefully they can build on that for next season. But yeah, as far as the World Series goes, I don't give a shit who wins. They can beat each other into submission for all I care. I don't care. Dev to Dust. Hey, Slim Yoshi, thank you, man. Thank you for the 20. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, Slim Yoshi. Dev to Dust says, with Halloween around the corner, I'm here to say that Jaws is not a horror movie. Well, I'm here to tell you that Jaws is a horror movie. Just like Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And I will not be told otherwise. Alex says, activated, Brother Solo. Yes, Bree mode has been activated. With NXT hosting a rare Wednesday show at the ECW Arena, I gotta ask, will you do a double review of both NXT and, of NXT and Dynamite? Also, how do you think Tony Khan feels about this? I don't really care how Tony Khan feels, to be honest with you. I'm sure he's thrilled. I'm sure he's thrilled. But I really don't want to do a double review. I probably will review one or the other. I'm leaning towards NXT, but we'll see. I mean, when we get a little bit closer, I'll make a decision. I might even throw it to you guys, frankly. You know, I do these streams for you. And so if there's more people who are interested in me reviewing NXT at the ECW Arena, then that might be what I review that night. And if not, then we'll do a Dynamite review and we'll save the NXT review for the podcast. I'll definitely review both shows. I don't know about doing them both. It's just very hard to keep track. Then you miss stuff. I don't want to miss stuff. You know, I want to focus on what's going on. The last one I did was a little bit easier because it was only the 1 hour of overlap. This is going to be head to head, 8 to 10. And yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Hype Man Slimy. I met you in 2016 in a bar. Where's this going? My dad and I were going to Raw after SummerSlam. You asked 10-year-old me who my favorite wrestler was. I said, The Undertaker. Crazy. I already met my favorite YouTuber. Is there a two-part super chat here? No? Only one? I thought there was a second part. Hype Man, I appreciate that very much. 2016, you know, that we probably did it at the King's Beer Hall, if that was 2016. I'm guessing it was at the King's Beer Hall, but I could be wrong about that, but that's very cool. Thank you, brother. By the way, you know, it is Halloween season, so I had to bust out the Michael Myers here. Had to. The Met shirt has been retired. Now we're in Halloween gear. 10-year-old in a bar. Hey, you know, some dads are just cooler than others. Manuel Macias with a channel membership of 4 months. Hi, Solomonster, remember me. Of course I remember you. How could I forget? No, 10-year-olds cannot drink here in New York, although that's not to say that there are not 10-year-olds that drink. But there are some places where it's a combination of like a bar, restaurant, and at least for certain hours, families are welcome. So that's why. Justin G, Samantha to... Oh, well, that's interesting. Her doing MMA. Yeah, I don't know. MMA, boxing. She indicated that we're going to see her again soon, and Ricochet said she's not going to AEW. And I don't see her leaving WWE to go work for, you know, the NWA. So she obviously has plans outside of wrestling. What they are, I don't know. Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. A powerful one, thank you. And fuck that tree, indeed. I agree. Elijah Davis. What's up, brother Solo? I wanted to say thanks. I had a rough day. My girlfriend Mercedes had been telling me to try therapy for years. I used BetterHelp and told them you sent me. I'll keep you posted. Please do. Please do. I've gotten emails from people who have really benefited from it, so I hope it works out for you. But keep me posted, brother. That's a good lady you got there. Justin G, got to find out where Lilian's fountain of youth is. Yeah, I mean, look, she doesn't look much different than the way she looked years ago when she was still doing it full time. And Lilian's almost 60 years old. Hard to believe. Yeah, her voice is a little bit different. She's still got that great voice. It sounds a little bit different, almost like a little bit deeper. But she could still do it. She still has that voice. Tokes Kazim, depressed over Samantha and Jey Uso. It'll get better, brother. The sun will shine again. Justin G, channel member here for 19 months. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Solomonster. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Prince Vegeta, what do you think the end game was for Steve Austin's championship run after WrestleMania X7? He was never supposed to drop it to Kurt Angle. Was it supposed to be him and Triple H at WrestleMania 18? I believe so. I believe so, yes. But, you know, it also goes, because look, it goes back to the two-man power trip. Right? What was the long-term plan for the two-man power trip? For Triple H to go babyface and to feud with Steve Austin. When that would have happened, I don't know, because then the Invasion storyline happened. And I feel like it just kind of threw everything into a state of just sort of suspended animation. But I think that if things go the way that they were planned, now we can't discount the possibility that they would have realized they made a big mistake by turning Austin heel in the first place, and they would have turned him back a lot sooner. But had they stuck to their guns, I think that would have been the plan. I think it would have been Austin and Triple H in the main event, because I just cannot fathom that in their mind they looked ahead to the following year's WrestleMania, even though it was in Canada, and thought, we need to have Chris Jericho in the main event. Like, there's no way. There's no way that that would have been their original plan. I think it would have been Austin and Triple H. There he is. There he is. The master and the ruler of the world. Dev to dust. Oh, again, the Judgment Day. Look at this. That just no matter where you turn, no matter which scene I'm in, they're always there to interrupt. Dev to dust. Sexy Red once said in a song that she wanted to get her kitty scratched. If you know, you know. Wouldn't that hurt? I would think that wouldn't. Well, I guess if you hit the right spot. But, you know, some girls, they have these long nails. They look like fucking claws. Like, imagine, you know? But I guess that's only if you're into girls. I don't know what she's into. I don't really give a shit. How did we end up on this topic anyway? NWO Matt, Solo thoughts on Yankees against Dodgers. I was hoping your Mets would take on my Yankees with that in mind. Who do you got? What's your pick? I think it's the Dodgers to lose. I just think their team is too good. You know, you got Ohtani and you got Yamamoto. I mean, their team. Look, you've got the battle of the two teams, right, that have combined for how many billions of dollars? How many billions have these teams spent to get the players that they have, right? So they've got some of the best players in all of baseball, and just look at the Dodgers alone. I'm not taking anything away from Soto and Judge and everybody that, you know, was on that Yankees staff. Obviously they got Mr. MVP over there too, but I think it's the Dodgers to lose. If I had to pick a winner, who do I think is going over in the World Series? I think it's going to LA. Not hating on the Yankees. That's just who I think is in a better position to win. Ian Noel with the 32. Craziness with Howdy, Miz, the Wyatt 6 Final Testament, the New Day breakup, R-Truth betrayal, or a lot of things happening at once. When was the last time multiple angles played out in a single segment? I feel like it happens on a fairly regular basis. It's happened before. I guess it didn't really jump out at me here because we're talking about multiple angles playing out, but many of them I don't really care about. So if was multiple angles of things I actually gave a shit about, that would be a lot more interesting to me. Chris Mikesell with that $150 bomb. Again, shout out to him, he and his wife, for having a baby boy. First week in April. Much love, Solo. Congrats, Chris. Keep us updated on how things go. All the best to you. Retro KOH, if you made a makeshift tag team with someone on the WWE or NXT and go for Judgment Day's tag team titles, who would you pick? I don't think we need more makeshift teams. The tag team champions are a makeshift team. The tag team champion, well, if I had the choice to go cross-branded with it, it would have to be a babyface team since the champions are heels right now. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. How's that for a makeshift team? Forced to team. Can they coexist? Then they win the tag team titles. Rico the Official. Did anyone see the Street Trash t-shirt that Raquel was wearing tonight? Wasn't that the same name they were going to rename the Judgment Day a while ago? It was considered as a new name for the group, and then it was WrestleVotes that mentioned that they... thankfully, they thought better of it, but they were going to use it for merch. So you're seeing it used on the merch. We almost, though, we came close to having it as the new name of the group. What happened was actually people shit all over it on social media, and then WrestleVotes said, okay, they reconsidered. And we've heard that Triple H, he's got multiple burner accounts. Triple H is probably voting in the fucking polls that I put up on Twitter. Apparently, he's sitting sometimes in the gorilla position. He's on his phone on Twitter. So, like, he probably saw the feedback and said, okay, ixnay on the idea, but we'll use it, because it was Finn Balor's idea, apparently, to use it as, like, as a merch idea. So I guess if you want to blame anybody for that, you can blame him. Arabian Night, the way the announcers reacted to that Breakker and Fatu stare down was so comatose and pathetic. Tessitore is so dull, sounds like he's calling a video game. He's got moments where I wish he had a little more enthusiasm. I think he actually does a really good job overall. I think he's much improved from the way he was that first week. But yeah, the announcers in that moment, they didn't exactly treat it like a big deal, but the fans did. The fans definitely did. Aaron says, who did Rhino vote for in 2000? Gore, gore, gore. Very good. Very good. You know, Rhino is going into the TNA Hall of Fame. Good for him. We've got Mutahir Majid with the $10 super chat. My God, has Gunther improved 10 times on the mic in the last year? I love his style of subtle disrespect. With his mic work, along with stellar in-ring skills, I think he is the best all-around performer going today. He's pretty damn good. He's got that, it's kind of like a dry sense of humor, but he just comes off like such a douche. And like when he drops a line on somebody, like he laughs, he smirks, like he knows. That's what makes him so hateable. It's perfect. Retro says, what is a pixel artist's favorite soft drink? He says, Sprite.
You suck.
Justin G. Sidro is not here. So, did you see Mike Awesome's favorite weekend attraction? A place they call the Zoo. I'll get my coat. Mike Awesome's favorite weekend attraction, the zoo? I don't get it. I don't even get that one. Justin, you got to work on your material there, brother. Retro KOH says, what kind of plant should you always watch out for? An ambush. All right, well that one's a little bit better. That one's a little bit better. I have no idea, Justin, I have no idea what you're talking about. That one just went way over my head. Maybe somebody in the chat knows, but I don't know, man. All right, Justin's gonna try another one here. This is gonna be bad. Gunther couldn't get his preferred appetizer at the restaurant. He left quite a sauerkraut about it. Oh my god. These are so bad. Oh, the zoo used to be his theme song. Wow. That's still a terrible joke. This one's not much better. Justin, my god. What is going on here? Big G says, I'm afraid that Justin is no Sidro. We have a pretender to the throne here. Aaron says, sorry about the Mets. As a Yankees fan, I wanted the Subway Series real bad, but no matter what, let's go Yankees. Hey, I hope they do well. I just think I think that they're in for a tough time with the Dodgers. Retro says, my last one today. What do you call a sus noodle? An impasta. An impasta.
You suck.
Yeah, where are all the tomatoes in the chat? Get those tomatoes ready. Nick Grasso. After tonight, I think Jey Uso cost the Bloodline the tag titles and the Motor City Machine Guns will be the tag team champion. Well, you would know that if you listen to the podcast on Sunday, because I told you the exact same thing. Also, somebody needs to check on Rikishi tonight. He can always use Vince Russo as a punching bag. He'll have to get in line behind Phil Mushnick. David Thiering. Hey, David, what's going on, man? I feel like I haven't heard from David in a few weeks. Hey, Solo, just wanted to say after the Hog event Friday, thumbs up job from me to you, Commissioner. Thank you, sir. The banter between you, JD, and Doc with every Hog event for me is hilarious. Mike Santana is him, and he is a beast. Mike Santana is having one of the best years that any champion has had all year in wrestling. And I wish more people knew about it. Obviously, I have a front row seat to it every single month. But we've been able to bring in some pretty big names, and he goes in there with them. It was Masato Tanaka this past weekend, but I mean, he's been in there with Red. He's been in there with Josh Alexander. He's been in there with, I mean, up and down the list. You look at everybody he's been in there with, Matt Riddle and Penta, and on and on and on. And he just kills it every single time. So he's having a great year, and hopefully more people will check out his work and check out the Hog shows. Our last show, not our last show, but the show from September, the one that Joe Hendry was on. If you've never checked out a Hog show, the entire show, we put it up for free on our YouTube channel. So all the other shows, including the most recent one, are on Triller if you pay for it. But check that show out. Believe in the glory. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll give you a kind of a taste of HOG. Toby with the channel membership for 25 months. Congrats to all you Mets fans. You made it as far as you could. Go Dodgers. Joseph Stewart with will Edge go down as an all-time great? For some people, he will, yes. But again, I got a similar question about this when it came to Sheamus, and it's like all-time great. When you say all-time great, what do you mean? If you mean somebody who kind of reached the top of the mountain and will be looked back upon as one of the greats to ever do it. I think that they're both in that conversation, but if you mean all-time greats as in top 10, top 20, maybe even top 30.
You, Solo. You are my tribal chief.
Then not for me. You want to start ranking them like that? But no, I mean, he's an all-time great, and so is Sheamus. You know, I think their body of work speaks for itself. I just think that top 10, top 20, 25, I mean, that's reserved for the elite of the elite. And also, you know, some people might just rank them as they're just personal favorites all time. He doesn't make the cut for me, but for a lot of people, I'm sure he does. It's not for me. Powerful one. So was Jacob super kicking Jey part of the plan, or did he go rogue there? If Solo was there to help Jey win, then what Jacob did does not make sense. I guess we'll have to tune in on Friday to find out. The thing is, though, it could have been a rogue move, because remember what Jey said to Jacob on Friday. He looked at Jacob. He didn't like the way Jacob was eyeballing him, and he said he's going to basically, you know, knock him on his ass if he keeps doing that. So Jacob didn't like that very much. So maybe it was a case where Jacob went rogue, or we don't know, right? Solo says that Jacob went rogue. He was there truly to help Jey, and Jacob took it upon himself to do what he did, right? We have to wait and see. That could be part of the story as well. Gold Matthew. Do you think Triple H neglects tag team wrestling because it's harder to tell stories, not including trios? What are some of the best tag team stories? I mean, he's telling a story right now with the New Day, right? And if you look over the years, there have been plenty of stories going back to the Mega Powers angle, you know, back in 87 into 88 and 89. You could look at so many different tag team breakup stories, the Rockers, Edge and Christian. So, is it harder to tell a story with tag teams? No, I don't think it is. I think that's just an excuse. I really do. I think it's just an excuse. It might be a different type of story. Maybe they go about it differently, but no, I mean, why should that make a difference? You know, whether or not it's one person or two, whether or not it's a male or a female. Story is a story. Come up with a compelling one. Gold Matthew says, hot take, tag team wrestling would be so much better if it mainly used makeshift tag teams. Makeshift tag teams in early 2000s WWE were special. I think there's a place for them. I wouldn't say that tag team wrestling would be so much better. I don't agree. I think that there is a lack of regular full-time tag teams right now. You know, on like the main roster in WWE. But I don't look at it and go, well, wrestling would be better if the teams were mostly just makeshift teams. I disagree. You know, I grew up as a fan, as somebody who watched plenty of full-time, just full-bore, real tag teams that were not makeshift. In what I think was the golden age, frankly, of tag team wrestling. So you had people like the Road Warriors, and you had the Horsemen, and you had the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. And again, some of these teams I wasn't watching when I was at a young age. I came to appreciate them later on. But in that era, you had the Midnights and the Rock and Rolls and the Fantastics and I mean, my God, Steiner Brothers, and you had Heart Foundation and the British Bulldogs and Killer Bees and Demolition and Strike Force. I guess Strike Force would have been a makeshift team. And obviously you get into the 90s and there was a tag team renaissance with Edge and Christian and the Hardys and the Dudleys and the Hollies and APA. So I don't agree with that. Powerful one. My hope for this World Series is both teams destroy each other, play each other into comas, and the series is canceled. So neither team wins. Fuck the Yankees and the Dodgers. So Powerful one is not a fan of either team. He wants to have a no contest here in the World Series. That would be a pretty shitty ending to the World Series. I don't think fans would like that. I don't think the commissioner would like that very much. This postseason has been great, I will say. I was even like that game where the Guardians like came back and beat the Yankees is one of the best playoff games all postseason so far. Like that was special. And they didn't make it in the end, but even I was watching that like, man, this game is fucking great. This whole postseason has been that way. Ryan Awesome. If American Made and Alpha Academy were to merge together, what would their name be? American Alpha. I guess so. I guess you're right. You got me on that one. It would be American Alpha. I miss American Alpha. They didn't have a long enough run. Justin G, I'd love to see a show of gimmick clerical errors. What? In what way? What do you... And Justin gifted a channel membership to Connor Jeans. Thank you, Justin, and welcome, Connor. Hey, Connor, you're a channel member now, brother. Go check out that bonus Q&A. I know you didn't get in on it, but you can watch it. Part 1, up right now. Part 2, coming on Wednesday. Slim Yoshi with a $20 super chat. Is there a WrestleMania where you found the undercard very underwhelming? Yeah, probably most of them. Especially the early years. Go back and watch WrestleMania 5, and tell me that you weren't underwhelmed by the undercard. For me, it's WrestleMania 29. We got 3 big matches, Cena Rock, Punk Taker, and Triple H Brock. And then there was the rest of the card, like Del Rio against Swagger. You mean you didn't enjoy that P. Diddy performance at WrestleMania 29? That I'm sure they wish they could erase from history. Oh, look at Uffman. Uffman just gifted 5 channel memberships. Including Ray. Look at that. Ray Wrighton just got gifted a membership. I don't know if Ray's with us live tonight, but look at that. But yeah, I mean, look, there's been a lot of WrestleManias that had a very underwhelming undercard. 29 was one. Believe me, I know. I was there. 32, I don't remember 32 being that much better, to be honest with you. But I think back to a lot of the early WrestleManias. People remember those big matches like Hogan Andre, Hogan Warrior, Savage Warrior. But they don't really realize that when you look at the undercard, a lot of it was shit. Sorry to say. It's kind of the way it's always been for a very long time. Powerful one. Just got my tickets for Raw on November 25th in Phoenix. The go home to Survivor Series will be my first Raw. Can't wait. My cousin and I also booked a hotel in Vegas and are planning to go to WrestleMania. Well, that's awesome. I love Vegas. I've only been there twice, but I love Vegas. I don't even gamble. It's just fun, especially a trip like that. Like, you're going to have a ton of wrestling fans there. There'll be all kinds of events going on. So especially if you're not into the scene out there, you're going to have fun. Isaac, thoughts on GCW returning to Hammerstein? I saw that. In fact, I was in the video. I was in the trailer that they put out. They're taking a very interesting approach with this show because the first show had so much fanfare going into it. GCW was like the hot thing. And I bought the pay-per-view and I reviewed it. It's here on the channel. I did a full review on that show. And they took a clip from that review because it wasn't a very good show. So in the trailer, they took clips of people reviewing that first show saying how bad it was. And basically the theme of this one is we're gonna dust ourselves off, come back and try again. So they're acknowledging the first show was really no good. And now they're getting one more shot at it. They're going to go back to the Hammerstein, and this time they're going to try to hit a home run, which for their sake, I hope they do. I wish the WWE or AEW would run that fucking building. I don't know why. I understand it's not a great venue as far as like television production. I've heard that said before. I get that. But I can't believe that neither one of them have run that building. It's not like they can't afford to. I know it's expensive, but I know, please, they could afford to run the building one night. I think Tony Khan and Nick Khan could find the budget to run that building for one night if they really wanted to. RDS Harry. Great review, brother. Bron versus Jacob would be great. Yes, it would. Bryan Alex, Wyatt 6 against the Bloodline in 2025. I don't see that. I don't see it happening. David Thiering with the 20. After the Steel Cafe Super Chat, I gotta ask, buy, sell, rent. Favorite name, phrase said in this channel's history. A Steel Cafe, I Smoke a Lot of Weed, Ted Cruz. All three of which I have seen broke you. Yeah, I called Cruz del Toro Ted Cruz. I don't remember. I don't know why. I Smoke a Lot of Weed, though, I think is like at the top of the list. Just because of how I truly read it the wrong way the first time. Like, the first time I ever read that name, I just thought it was like a playoff coffee. I just saw mocha in there. For some reason, I just, it just didn't hit me until I just said it a few times, and then I just broke. Then I was just, I was useless for the next 6 minutes. I pulled that clip immediately. I have that saved for posterity. So yeah, the others don't even matter. I'm gonna buy on that one. Ian Noel, since you spoke about possibly moving Drew McIntyre and maybe American Made to SmackDown, who would you then move to Raw from SmackDown if it were done as a trade to be fair and shake things up for both shows? Well, I've said on the McIntyre thing, I would move AJ. So, McIntyre for Styles. I think that's fair. I know that McIntyre has been a much bigger deal than AJ has been this year, but still, 2 former world champions, future Hall of Famers. I think it's a fair trade. For American Made, I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. I don't even think it necessarily needs to be an even number. Like, you got 4 people in American Made, so it's got to be 4 people that go to Raw. I don't think it does. Especially now with Raw being 2 hours, right? But I don't know. American Made. Well, I mean, maybe Legado? Right? Maybe Legado, but then you get Legado and the LWO back on the same show, and then we're doing that shit again. So, I don't know. That one I may have to think on, but maybe Legado del Fantasma. Havili, channel member for 17 months. In your opinion, what would have been the main event for night 1 of WrestleMania 40 if everyone wasn't injured? CM Punk against Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Joseph Stewart, how come people don't see Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, as a main eventer like they saw Bray Wyatt as a main eventer? Hey, some people did not see Bray Wyatt as a main eventer. Some people did, some people didn't. But they just don't have as much invested in the Uncle Howdy character. It may take time, maybe over a period of time, the people who don't will. But Bray was just a very different character with a much deeper, richer history in this company than Uncle Howdy is. I don't see them as, one for one. Leopoldo with the 1444. Congrats, Chris Mikesell. Solo would legit be a cool name, an homage to wrestling, the best podcaster in wrestling, Solomonster, and to one of the coolest dudes in movie history, Han Solo. Can't miss. There you go. You got to name the kid Solo. It's done. That's it. I'm putting my stamp of approval on it. Solo Mikesell. So it shall be done. Prince Vegeta, do you agree with me in saying that the original Terminator fits the horror genre as a slasher film? As a slasher film? No. It's not a slasher film. NWO Matt, so I looked it up. Yankees payroll is $309 million, second in MLB. Dodgers $241 million, fifth in MLB. And the Mets $317 million, first in MLB. moving on. We have Yuio, who just wrote his name in the super chat. I'm still not going to say it because I know I'm going to butcher it, but I appreciate the $2. Creflo $50. Hey Solo, what was the deal with King Kong Bundy doing computer commercials? I thought advertisements back in the day were reserved for the faces. Well, I think that's why he either left or got fired. I think he got a deal and he wanted to do... Was that the reason why, or did he do that after he left? I think that was the reason why. I think he wanted to do it. He did. And he was gone for many years from WWE, and he came back in '94. So yeah, that sort of thing would have been frowned upon back then, especially for the heels. And I think that may have had to do with why he left. Uffman gifted 5 channel memberships, and then David gifted 5. That's a total of 10. Thank you both. NWO Matt, celebrating 8 months of membership. Thank you, Matt. John Smoltz is such a Mets hate. Yeah, don't get me started on John Smoltz. You know, I understand that Otani is like a once-in-a-lifetime player. He's going to go down as maybe the greatest when all is said and done. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And it's amazing, you know, how his interpreter took the fall for him. But, yeah, the thing with Otani is, like, multiple times in that series, I had to sit here and listen to these announcers glazing this guy. The only thing missing, I mean, I hope they had a towel. So, you know, got to protect those knees. And then, of course, you got to clean up after. It was ridiculous. Like, there was one point in the series where he was jogging around the bases. I think he was headed home. And they replayed it multiple times, and they're, like, admiring, like, he doesn't even know how fast, he's like a gazelle, you know, he doesn't even realize how fast he is, and look how easy and how smooth it is. I'm like, hey, you got a little something over here, John. It's ridiculous. Brandon Vasquez. I want to find someone that talks about me the same way that John Smoltz talks about Shohei Ohtani. You add an Aaron Judge now in the same series. Oh my. Yeah, don't get me started. Base Beerus, did you catch Piers Morgan's interview with wrestlers? A part of it. Go check out the very beginning of the podcast. Get my thoughts on what little I actually could stomach of that show. I don't like Piers Morgan to begin with. You couldn't pay me enough to sit here and watch a 60-minute fucking Piers Morgan show. And I say that as somebody who once was actually on the morning show over there on ITV that he hosts over in Britain. That's a whole other story. I've told that story before. Powerful one. Ohtani is great, but he's no Bonds. Easy now. Well, Ohtani is all natural, so that's a conversation for another time. We don't have to get into that now. That's a whole other deal. Thank you for all of the super chat love. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. We are currently at 469 likes, which is awesome. Let's see if we can creep closer to 500 here before we end the live portion of this stream. But before we do, we have one thing left to do, and you know what that is. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
Yes, indeed. It is time to be the Booker. That is what we are going to do. Fun little feature we have here at the end of these streams. Nobody else does. Only here. And you guys seem to love it. So we do it. We book ourselves some random matches, and it makes you think. It makes you think. What would that have been like? Who would win in a battle like this? We begin with head cheese. Al Snow and Steve Blackman. I was very sports entertained by Head Cheese. I was a Head Cheese, and I don't even like cheese these days. I can't have it, but I was a big Head Cheese fan back in the day. Steve Blackman clearly was not, but it was very entertaining. And they're going to be taking on Fandango and Tyler Breeze. I mean, if that isn't a metal or a jacked match or a velocity match, I don't know what is. It's definitely not good enough for Be the Booker. Rough start. It's like the Mets leaving 6 men on base. Is that even possible? I'm sure they would find a way. All right, women's Be the Booker. We begin with, Mina and Mariah want to make this a 3-way match. Well, all right then. This is going to be a 3-way match. And we have to pick 3 people. So Mina and Mariah don't count. They just want this to be a 3-way match. So we have our stipulation now. Here we go. We got to pick 3 ladies here for this triple threat match. We begin with Maurice. Always loved she used to do that. Their hands. Maurice. Oh my God. Young Maurice was, even Maurice now, but like young Maurice was, unbelievable. She was amazing. All right, Maurice and Alba Fire. That's number 2. We got 1 more to go. We got Maurice. We got Alba Fire. That's two very different accents there. And we round it out with Marina Shafir. Maurice, Alba Fire, and Marina Shafir. Is that a match that's going to sell tickets? Right? Are we going to set gate records with that? I mean, be honest now when you answer this question. We are headed for catastrophe here. We are headed for catastrophe. This is going to be like the Yankees in the World Series. We are going to get swept right out of Be the Booker here. This is terrible. This is terrible. All right. Oh my God. This is just going great. We begin here with Jack Perry. The Scapegoat is in the main event of Be the Booker. I'm sure this is going to make some people in the chat very happy. This is quite the night here in Be the Booker. Jack Perry. Everyone's favorite, I know. I can see all the buzzers right now in the chat. Look at this. Jack Perry gonna go one-on-one with the phenomenal AJ Styles. It saved it. AJ saved it. I was ready. Dude, I had my finger on the buzzer. Just like all of you, but look, Jack Perry and AJ Styles, I think that would actually be a hell of a match. You don't have to like Jack Perry, but you can't deny. That saved the day right there. AJ, yes, AJ pulled it out there at the last minute. We were headed for a reverse sweep. Thankfully, I don't have to use that sound effect, so we're all good. That was going down a very bad road. Justin G says, when I said clerical errors, I mean the Steel Cafe. Ah, I see. I didn't know what you meant by that. Devin from NJ. Does Solo still think that on The Sopranos, if Livia was in season 3, like intended... Hold on a second here. Tony would try to have her whacked so she wouldn't testify. Yes, I do. Because Tony hated his mother. She was a witch. She really was. She was a witch of a woman. He should have put a fucking pillow over her face. She was evil. Creflo $50, a friend of mine who was a diehard Mets fan, said that if the Giants and the Dodgers had stayed in New York with the Mets never existing, he said that he would be a Giants fan. Which team would you support? P.S. Solo doing taxes is all-time classic. That was the first time I ever broke on a stream. That was when we were taking phone calls. And I made the mistake. God bless whoever that was. And he may be watching right now. He's part of Sound Off history, but it was a very long call. And I made the mistake of just looking over. And somebody made the comment that Solo is doing his taxes. And I think I crouched down. So all you saw was the back of the chair. And then as I'm crouching down, you couldn't see it, but I reached up to like push the button to go to like a static image just because I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And then the next 7 minutes was just absolute madness. That was one of the early Dynamite reviews from like 2020. I think when everybody was locked down. And you just needed something to laugh about, you know? There was so much shit that, like, not to laugh about going on in the world. That one stupid little comment just broke me. Retro KOH. Oh, anyway, to answer the question, what team would I be a fan of? Probably the Dodgers. I mean, I can't really answer that question for sure because it depends on who my father would have been a fan of. I mean, I became a Mets fan because my dad used to take me to Mets games. You know, my father and my grandfather were Mets fans, just like my father and my grandfather were wrestling fans. That's how I got into wrestling. That was my first exposure to wrestling. So probably the Dodgers. There are still some people, older people, let me tell you, here who live in New York and in Brooklyn, who to this day have never gotten over the Dodgers leaving and going out to LA. Retro says, how is Jungle Jackass a scapegoat if he wasn't the one fired? How does a scapegoat warrant driving a painted creeper van? His gimmick makes no sense. Well, he's the scapegoat because everybody blamed him for what happened. And then he got sent away. They banished him to New Japan, right? He was off television for like how many months? 6 months, 8 months? Ergo, he was the scapegoat. That would be their explanation for it. And Pisco says, have you watched Hereditary? I strongly recommend it if you want to watch a horror film this October. I have not. There's so many horror films that have been recommended to me that I haven't seen. I saw a great one. I wish I could remember the name of it a couple of years ago. Yeah, sometimes it's the smaller ones, like the smaller budget ones that don't get talked about a lot, that end up being some of the more, because it's hard to do like an original concept these days. But there are some good ones out there if you really look for it. And Creflo says the taxes corpsing moment is up there with the Sami Zayn and the Philly Bakery segment. There have been some moments. There have been some fun moments, man. We make some fun times here on these shows. It's been fun. We'll do it again on Wednesday night at AEW Dynamite, and we will also be live after SmackDown on Friday night. I missed SmackDown last week because of Hog, but I'll be here for all the usual streams this week. I hope you will be too. I want to end this month strong. Tonight was a strong night. But we got 4 more left after this, right? We got Wednesday, Friday, and then next Monday and Wednesday to close out October. So I want to close it out on a high note. I hope you'll be here with me. Again, for those of you who are channel members, and many of you now are brand new channel members, thanks to the gifted memberships tonight, Part 1 of my members-only Q&A is up for you right now. Over an hour long, answering your questions. Part 2 is another hour going up on Wednesday. So by noon Eastern, keep your eyes peeled. Because by noon Eastern, Part 2 will be up, and that is exclusively for channel members. That is only for your eyes and ears only. It will not be released publicly. So it's one of the perks of channel membership. Base Beerus says, I watched Smile for the first time this weekend. Anyway, $4 a pound. Okay. You didn't tell me how you liked the movie, by the way. And Nick Grosso, did you see Deadpool and Wolverine yet? To me, it is the movie of the year, and Beetlejuice 2 was good too. I did see Beetlejuice 2. I liked it for what it was. Obviously, it's not the original, but I liked it. I have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't watch that many superhero movies. Like, I just don't. You know, I mean, there's been so many Marvel movies now. Even if I wanted to go back, I just feel so overwhelmed. Everyone's always talking about how the MCU, everything's connected and all the stories are connected. And I'm like, all right, well, then I have to watch them all. And I just don't have time. I saw the first Avengers movie. What else did I see? I mean, I saw like the older Spider-Man movies with like Tobey Maguire and stuff. But yeah, I haven't seen much beyond that, you know? I just haven't. I still haven't seen the Batman. I can't watch the Penguin on Max until I see the Batman. I need 3 hours of my life to watch the Batman. I don't even like Raw at 3 hours. Anyway, thank you guys. Go check out episode 884 of The Sound Off. I would really appreciate it if you did. Worked hard on that yesterday. It's up for your listening pleasure, and I will see you back here on Wednesday night for the AEW stream. So until then, be well, stay safe. MCU is good and you don't need to watch all of them, says Joey. I did see the Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. So I wanted to see Batista in that movie. Batista's great. But I didn't see the sequels. Maybe one of these days. I'll see you guys Wednesday night.